All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to today's SCORE workshop. My name is Kendra Aris. I am a SCORE mentor with the SCORE East Central Iowa chapter, and we're excited today to present our SCORE workshop on Zoom while we are waiting for our in-person workshops to resume, hopefully sooner rather than later, but we won't make any predictions. If you are unfamiliar, SCORE is a volunteer organization of mentors that mentors young and small and, well, all business owners. It is a free service provided in our area. So we are in the Cedar Rapids, Iowa City area, and we service pretty much all of Eastern Iowa. If you are a small business and you need a mentor or are looking for mentorship, you can go to scorecr.org for more information. Click on Find a Mentor, and you can get started with that process. Even during our pandemic situation, we are still maintaining relationships with our clients, and new mentors are welcome to apply. Thank you so much, Leanne. She said SCORE is amazing. We really do try, and it's been really fun being a volunteer for SCORE and connecting pieces of the community. And part of that is my friend Rina, who is a business resiliency coach. Rina and I have known each other for a long time, and she has definitely helped me understand the emotional side of business. And it's very emotional, whether or not I want to admit it or not, which I know Rena's laughing about because it's definitely, feelings are not my forte to talk about. So I'm glad she is providing this service to the community. Today, she is presenting her workshop on expectations, which she presented at Beyond Rubies in Cedar Rapids back in early March, and it was not something I was able to attend, so I'm really glad to be able to get to watch this, and I know a lot of people and enjoyed her workshop there as well. So, and I think with everything going on in the world right now, expectations are, this is a whole new way to try to manage one's expectations. So I would imagine though, and Rina can clarify, that managing expectations is a similar situation, whether you're in a pandemic or in a regular situation. So, but I do think it's timely that we can learn about this now while expectations are literally all over the place. So I'm going to pin Rina's video here, and I'm going to mute my audio. And Rina, you can go ahead and get started and finish introducing yourself.
Great, thank you. So yeah, I am Rina. As Kendra said, I'm a resiliency coach, and what that means, what resiliency is the ability to recover quickly from a setback. And how that applies to business and life in what I do is that we are constantly experiencing some kind of setback, whether it is a momentary influx of emotions when we get super stressed out, like we are all experiencing right now, or whether it is a serious setback, again, like we're experiencing right now, when we don't know what to expect, we can't plan, and we just seem to be sitting in this this pot of unknown. And we'll talk about that in a little bit too, but what we want to talk about today is the expectations audit, and I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to share this with you. This is interactive. When I do presentations in person, I don't have any problem standing in front of you in silence waiting for you guys to respond, because I cannot stand to be talked at. And that's pretty much where we are with Zoom. We try really hard to interact, and we want to connect the best way that we can. So we are, I end up doing a lot of the talking, which is very interesting for me because while I like to talk, I don't like to do all of the talking. So there's going to be a couple of slides in here for you guys to interact with. And right now, what I want you to do is describe professional. All you need to do is go to polev.com/Rina Jensen 956, and you'll be able to text your responses. I did this so people wouldn't have to speak on camera if they didn't want to. So would love to have you do that.
Also, we do have a chat box open, Rina.
I'm trying to get to the chat box, but it's not, my computer is not working with
Okay,
me.
I can let you know if a question comes through. I'll unmute
Perfect.
and
Thank
just
you.
let you know if you don't have like some people have their phone, as their Zoom, so that might be complicated, but
Yeah.
but that's a really cool feature. I want to do that.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. There's a lot. I'll send it over to you later, Kendra.
Cool, thanks.
So anyway, I want to describe a professional, and why can I not see the chat? Where did it go? Yeah, I can't see it. So if there's anything in there, let me know. Some words that I've heard are confident. I've heard put together. I've heard expert. I've heard a variety of words. Is there something in the chat, Kendra? I thought I saw that there was something. Okay. All right. You guys, if you don't interact with this poll everywhere, this is going to be a very short presentation.
I've kind of given some directions in there. So she's asking to describe a professional. If you could go over to the chat and put in a few words into the chat box of how would you describe a professional. And I was going to say put together and an expert, like they know everything about everything. They're, yeah. And Leanne said an expert as well. I think that, I think somebody once told me if you had like 1,000 hours doing something that made you a professional. So probably like endless experience, and dedicated is another word. Experienced, dedicated. These are the words coming through on the chat now.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you, Kendra. All right, so we'll skip this page then. Hopefully you guys can get to the pollev.com, Rina Jensen 956. There are some text clouds that are going to be coming up here in a second, and it's going to be really cool if you can participate. So we'll go ahead and go over to what we're going to talk about today. The expectations audit is about understanding that we don't have to be attached to our own expectations. So the art of detachment is about understanding that things fluctuate, people fluctuate, and that we aren't always coming from the same spot. We have this idea that we are, that we have the exact same meanings for everything, and that when we say something, everybody else understands exactly what that is. But that's not true. So if we can let go of the emotion that is involved in having those expectations, then we're less likely to be frustrated and annoyed with people. So we're gonna do a little exercise here. Here's where the word cloud is gonna come up. String theory is fundamentally saying that we are all part of the same framework. So what I would like for you guys to do is enter some words into pollev, and things that are, they're going to be your thoughts and emotions, things that are concerning to you right now, things that are exciting to you right now, emotions that you've felt, thoughts that you've had about yourself, like I'm worried. The word cloud does only take one word. So if you type out a phrase, it will break the words up.
Well, I would say what I'm hearing from people, just to get the conversation started, obviously worry is one of the things that people, that their thoughts and emotions, but like the uncertainty of what's going on. And I would say that that's kind of life in general. It's just like uncertainty and change is coming up. Oh, you can see that part.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just learning. But like, but I think that like life is kind of uncertain anyway. Like things could happen at any moment, but like it's just being magnified and amplified right now.
Newness, that's a good one.
We have a comment that's from Judy saying, I'm a registered horseback riding instructor, and I also work with special needs kids. Obviously, I can't do this right now. So providing my students with online classes about horses, which is probably, something that isn't offered very often. So that's where like that newness, another way that comes through.
Yeah, absolutely. So the idea is that when I do this in person, we have a string, an actual string, and you can see how the string is a web of our emotions, that we are not the only ones thinking and feeling the same kinds of thoughts and emotions. We have we have a unique ability to not be alone and still isolate ourselves all the time. So let's talk about co-creation. And the things that are involved in co-creation are words, judgment, and real maple syrup, which I'm going to get to in a second. We have our brain is, aside from keeping our body alive and telling our hands when to move and our mouths when to move, the brain's purpose is a thought generator. And we generate somewhere between 60 and 80,000 thoughts per day. And of those thoughts, about 70% of them are negative and historically focused. So we're thinking about the crap conversation that we had with our spouse, or we are frustrated with the way the meeting went at work. We have those kinds of thoughts going through our brain all the time. It is literally non-stop. It is the thing that our brain is designed to do. And so when our brain is thinking all of these thoughts and generating all of these thoughts, it's very negative based because we have a negative bias. And our negative bias says that we need to be aware of all of the things that could physically harm us, because if we encounter a saber-toothed tiger, then we need to be prepared and know exactly what to do. And our body knows exactly what to do. That's why we have fight or flight. We also have freeze and appease, but we'll talk about that later. So when we are when we're in the middle of a conversation with somebody, we listen to the words that they use and we interpret them based on our experiences and our thoughts, our feelings, and our emotions. If you've ever gotten a text message from a friend and you thought that person was pissed off, to find out later that they weren't, that was because you were interpreting it through your own filter. Now we do that with things like real maple syrup. So let's talk about real maple syrup. And I'm sure you guys are all curious as to how and why real maple syrup is part of this presentation. I'm gonna tell you. So I had started seeing this guy about a year ago and I wanted to impress him. And I was going to make him breakfast and I was going to make him pancakes. And he's like, yeah, pancakes sound good, but I want real maple syrup. And I was like, okay, real maple syrup it is. So I went to the store and I looked through all of the options of real maple syrup. And I thought, this is kind of strange. He doesn't seem like a real maple syrup kind of guy to me, but whatever. That's what he said he wanted. So there's organic, there's maple, there's other things, and then there's Canadian. And so what I ended up getting was this bottle of real maple syrup. Organic, cost me about, I want to say like $8. And this is 8.5 fluid ounces of real organic maple syrup. If you've never had real organic maple syrup, personally, maybe you'll like it because, you know, our experiences are not the same. I'm not a fan of this. So I made him breakfast and I gave him real maple syrup and I'm eating it and I'm thinking, this is the most disgusting thing I have ever tasted. So he didn't say anything and he said, you know, breakfast was good and yay, I won some points. And then a couple weeks later, I was at his house and he made me breakfast. He made me pancakes and he pulled out real maple syrup. Now, as you know, this is not considered real maple syrup. But for him, this was real maple syrup because when he was growing up, and by the way, when I saw this, I said, I thought you liked real maple syrup. That's why I went out and bought that. And he said, well, I grew up on taro syrup. Therefore, Hungry Jack is real maple syrup. And I was like, you have got to be kidding me. So based on his experiences in childhood, his opinion of real maple syrup is this $3 bottle of Hungry Jack. I grew up on this, but he grew up on this. So when we look at that kind of experience, the words were based on my definition, or my definition was based on my experience. So the words we used were the same, but they didn't have the same meaning. So let's talk about how we assign the meaning, value, and the power. So what I say when I say power is that it's clear this versus this has different meanings, right? Has a different experience, but the power that we give them determines the emotion that we have about the word. If you guys have ever been called a name, then some names are going to be more emotion inducing than others, right? So if you're an assertive woman, then you're considered bossy. If you are, instead of boss. So we can take that word bossy and we can make it mean something more than it is. I'm an assertive woman. So what are some of your real maple syrup words? What are some words that you have assigned a meaning to that isn't necessarily the meaning of the word?
The first thing that comes to mind for me, Rina, is professional, going back to what you said before.
Yes.
It is funny because that word has changed meaning over time. And, you know, that's just really interesting to think about.
It is. It is.
So the question is, what words do you define or differently than other people? Is that what you would say?
Yep.
I'm just going to put it in the chat.
Awesome. Thank you. I don't know why I can't see the chat.
I don't know either. It should be at the bottom of your screen, but everybody, it kind of shows up in people's screens differently. But I think about the things that that's a good one.
Busy. Yes. That is a good one. Again, if you have the ability, you can go to pollev.com/Rina Jensen 956. Stressed.
Judy, introverted, that's good. Judy says tired and fine.
Yes, fine. Fine is a great one because fine is like, yeah, I'm cool. It's all good. Fine is like, I am incredibly irate. And if you say another word to me, I'm going to flip out, right? I'm fine. Fine.
Yeah, Mona says okay, which is similar to fine. I would go a step further and use that thumbs up emoji. I hate that thing. People send it to me as an acknowledgement and I see the finger, but that's not the one I interpret it as.
Right. Yes. LOL is a good one too. Are we really laughing out loud?
Are we?
Not.
Ed said the phrase, I don't care.
Yes, I don't care is good.
And Mona says not bad. Like
Yes.
Fine, not bad. No, really everything's falling apart. Thanks though, Karen.
Right? Exactly. We are constantly organized. Oh, yes. Yes, organized is a good one. Because what is our definition of organized? Is it that our thoughts are organized? Probably not. Is it that our desk is clean and that means we're organized? Yes. Yeah, words are interesting. One of the things that I wrote an article last year sometime about deviance and progress. And the word deviant in and of itself is not a negative word, but the connotation, the emotion that we attach to it absolutely is. Busy, LOL, stressed, productive, yes.
Ed said effective, and I would definitely agree with that.
Effective, yes. We have a lot of words that can be interpreted in many different ways. And if we have the ability to understand that our real maple syrup doesn't necessarily mean real maple syrup, then we can get through life a lot easier if we're not attached to our meaning that we assign and the power that we assign to those words.
I do have one question for you, Rina.
Yeah.
When you do this presentation, do you have to check your refrigerator to make sure you have your collateral to do it? Because I loved that you had your syrup there.
Yes. So when I did this presentation at Beyond Rubies, I absolutely pulled out these bottles during the presentation and showed them. So I didn't want to lose that. I could have had pictures, but I just didn't feel like it would be the same. So yeah, I do. Props all around. Yes, these are good ones. I really like these. All right. Let's go to the next slide, which is nothing is right or wrong. Thinking makes it so. This is one of my favorite quotes by Shakespeare. And it means that we assign a value to the words like we just talked about. Real maple syrup to me meant real maple syrup. Real maple syrup to him meant Hungry Jack or some form, right? It is not the same. So when we think about few words that are neutral by definition, deviance is the one that I use a lot because it is neutral by definition. Do you guys want to tell me what the definition of deviance is, or deviant?
I know a few people that I would think fit the description.
Right? Don't we all?
Taylor said straying from the norm.
That is the definition of deviant or deviance. That's the definition of deviance. Deviant is a person that strays from the norm. But when we hear the word deviant, that's not what we're thinking. We're thinking way more severe actions, right?
I have a nephew that comes to mind.
Yeah. I was about to say predatory, so.
Evil and negative is something that Judy said is what comes to mind for her.
Yeah. We think all of those things, but if we really look at the meaning of the word, then people like Steve Jobs and Martin Luther King Jr. are both deviants. The women that led the suffrage movement, they are all deviants. We have this unique ability to hear a thing and latch on to the initial thought or emotion that goes along with it. And so there are tons of words that are neutral, that we decide are not. We have tons of experiences that are neutral that we decide are not. We decide they mean something more than they are, than they can be. So, are there any other words? Nope.
She said very much like the word ignorant.
Ignorant.
Yeah, it's very, like people, what they make out as the word ignorant, like what ignorant means. And in reality, it's not as negative as, the definition is not as negative as we portray it to be.
Right. Absolutely. Very true. Which is a great segue into handout versus subsidy. What's the definition or the perception of a handout?
The definition or
perception.
Or perception. Oh, that you got something for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah. Taylor said the perception is negative. It's a negative word.
Right. And what is the definition or perception of subsidy?
I would say that it's something it's a word that's out now, helping someone in need, Taylor said. Yeah, mm-hmm. Like somebody that deserves it.
Yeah, somebody that deserves it. That deserve word is an interesting word in and of itself. Deserve can have its own emotion attached to it. You don't deserve that, or you totally deserve that.
Right.
Yeah. So here's the definition, the synopsis that I put together for the definitions of handout versus subsidy. A handout is to give help to a person. Okay. So when we think of this, we think of GoFundMe, crowdsourcing, or welfare. A subsidy is to give help to a company. In 2008-ish, there were lots of companies that were subsidized, right? They had tons of help from the government. There's housing that's subsidized. But we look at the two words and we think a handout is far more negative than a subsidy, because we're conditioned to think people should be able to take care of themselves, buy their own things. They shouldn't need a handout. All right, so let's talk a little bit about judgment. Judgment is something that we use typically to decide if a person, place, or thing is good or bad, right? We could judge, Kendra, I'm going to use you because I can see you. If we were not the kind of person that liked short hair, right, then we would think Kendra was a bad person simply for having short hair. That's it. No other reason, just because she has short hair. But what we need to decide is whether or not a person, place, or thing is good or bad for us. So Kendra can have her short hair all she wants, but it's not something that we want to do. Maybe our bone structure doesn't work for it. Maybe we just like to be able to do this and run our fingers through our hair and put a ponytail in our hair. It doesn't make Kendra an innately bad person because she has short hair. It just means that we don't like it. Another one is hugs. Right now, nobody's touching, right? And this is hard for me because I'm a hugger.
I have different feelings about this not touching situation happening.
Right. So being a hugger does not innately make me a good or a bad person. It just means that I like to give hugs. And if I'm giving a hug to a person that doesn't enjoy hugs, well, I've actually started asking people if it's okay. Do they hug? Do you hug? Because if you don't hug or there's any hesitation whatsoever, then I don't hug that person. Which when Kendra and I first met, I didn't ask her that. So I was hugging her all the time and she was like, rah.
You still do.
I do not.
That's true. But I will say that I have been more open to the idea of physical contact with people in that way, because I have really learned how much that is important to people. So I've gotten better.
Right. And it doesn't make you innately a good or bad person because you don't like to hug. Now, if someone says I'm not a hugger and I hug them anyway, then that makes me the asshole, right? Now, I could forget, like I've done to Kendra a couple of times. But ultimately, we have to be able to discern, and judgment is something that we use to make the other people whatever we decide. And if we can just take that information and decide whether or not that act or that thought or that behavior is good or bad for us, then we let go of the attachment to that particular thing. So I'm going to use marriage equality. I refuse to talk politics, but I'm going to use marriage equality. When this was a hot issue for our state, there were people on this side of it that said absolutely everybody should be able to do what they want, and there were people on this side of it that said absolutely not. This is not what this is about, right? So the both of these sides were looking at the other side and deciding that those people saying those things were right or wrong and good or bad because of it. Not deciding, let me stop just a second because the words got jumbled in my head. This side is not ultimately right or wrong. This side is not ultimately right or wrong, and neither side should be saying that the other side is good or bad, right or wrong. It's whether or not it's right or wrong for us. Does that make sense? Or did I jumble it too much?
That makes sense.
All right, good. Oh, was that Devin?
That was Devin.
Devin! Okay, so what are a few things that you like that someone else does not? If you guys got the handout, I had a few things listed on there. Hugs is one of them. I'm a huge hugger. Onions are another one. I despise onions. I think Emily is on here. she could attest to that.
We could go all day long with the food and the things that people love, like difference. Taylor said tomatoes, which would be my thing. I'm with tomatoes all the time. But
right. How
go ahead.
How about Apple versus Android?
Let's not start that conversation.
Differences in cuisines, yes. Yep.
Yeah, we could go there with with vehicles as well,
Mm-hmm. Breeds of horses, yes. Conferences.
Cats or dogs.
Cats or dogs. Mm-hmm. Yep. Different types of clothes. Yes, I like that one also. Networking. How many people like to network?
Well, I do, but
I do, but like at a distance.
social distancing networking at play right here.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. All right. Let's go on. Thank you guys for that response. So this slide, if we were in person, you would see that I have awesomely purple hair, which a lot of people would say is not professional. The other thing that you would see me in is ripped jeans. Another thing that people would say is not professional. And if you were super lucky, if I was feeling super extra, you would see the massively glitter boots that I've got. But we don't get to see that. So I'm just going to say that I probably fit your description on a lot of levels or your definition of a professional. But in the appearance category, I don't think that I would fit your definition of a professional. And I'm okay with that. So let's talk about detachment. First, we have to have an awareness. So that's what we talked about at the beginning. Then we need to have an understanding that if we are thinking these and we are feeling these things and we have something that we like that we know other people don't, then it's very reasonable for us to assume the same thing about other people and to be understanding about their experiences and how they have affected how other people deal with the world. Because we know that our experiences have affected how we deal with the world. So we're going to talk about neutralizing those thoughts now. We cannot go from a negative to a positive instantly. It doesn't happen. Our brain doesn't work that way. We are hardwired to have a thought progression, and it takes time and effort in order to change that thought progression. So here's how we do that. We have a negative thought. We have a less negative thought. We have a lesser negative thought. We have a neutral thought. Then we have a more positive thought and a little bit more positive thought. And then we have a positive thought. So there's the handout that Kendra emailed to you guys. If you have a chance to look at it, the example on there is, I hate networking. It's so hard. That's a negative thought, especially if you are a person that is not a networker. So a neutral thought to that is that networking is a part of business. There's nothing more to it. There's no emotion attached to that. It's just a part of business. It's especially a part of a sales position, right? The more positive thought is networking is easy. And you could even go so far as to say, I love it. Incidentally, I'm on the I love it side. So a negative, neutral, positive, that's the thought progression that you'll have. So what are some negative thoughts that you have? Does anybody want to discuss those, first of all? Because if not, then I can go into the other example. No?
I have one, but I have to think about it.
Okay, you can do that. So another thought progression is about a person. And we all have that person that, I saw that face. We all have that person that is, that grates on every single one of our last nerves. And we have a really, really hard time not thinking negative thoughts about them. So there are a couple of things that we can do. First, we're going to do the same progression. The example that I have is Nancy drives me nuts. She's so negative Nancy, right? So the neutral thought to that is Nancy is doing the best that she can. That's it. No more, no less, just the best that she can. And the more positive thought that you could eventually get to is I like Nancy. She's kind of funny. So one of the things that I have all of my clients do, regardless, is a gratitude. And I have them do 3 different ones every day. The first gratitude is exactly what you would think, something that you are grateful for, something in the world, something external. The second gratitude is for yourself, because we are our own worst critics. We are the ones that are beating ourselves up way more often than anybody else does for us. And so if we can take just a second every day for 5 minutes and understand that we're pretty damn awesome, then we will, it'll be easier for us to write a gratitude about ourselves every day. So if you woke up and you have a good hair day, great. That's a gratitude. If you were successful in something that you weren't sure you could do, there's a gratitude for you. The third one is about that one person, negative Nancy, that grates on every single one of your last nerves. And the reason is because you will experience a physical reaction. You do experience a physical reaction every time you think of that person. So I want to test this out. I want you to think of the person that grates on every single one of your last nerves. And I want you to notice what happened physically. And since you can't tell me, you can't shout out the words, I'm gonna assume that what happened is your heart rate increased a little bit. Your breathing probably shallowed a little bit. And your blood pressure probably increased a little bit. You probably didn't feel your blood pressure increase unless this person really, really grates every single one of your last nerves. So when that happens, when you are thinking of that person or an event and your body responds that way, that is your body's reaction to a fight or flight stimulus. So that person is causing your body to push out all of the things that will put you into survival mode. Adrenaline, cortisol. It takes away your ability to think clearly. So earlier I talked about the power that we assign the power to words. Well, we also assign power to people. And so this person, whoever this person is has a power over you that will forever keep you in a victim set, a victim thought progression, unless you take back your power. So when you have a gratitude about the person that grates your nerves, you're not doing it because you want to be able to go hang out with negative Nancy. You're doing it because you want to not have a reaction, a physical reaction to this person anymore. So it doesn't have to be a grand gratitude. It just has to be something small and noticeable. And if it's somebody that you work with, then the best thing that you can do is remember, one, that they're doing the best that they can, or they're coping in the way that they know how, and look at them as a child. Now, if you don't have kids, this is going to be easier for you because you're not instantly thinking about what your own kids are doing and that how you want to just, do these things with hands and like necks sometimes. But when you see a little toddler in the store that's just adorable, view that person as the tiny little adorable toddler. And you can't help but think they have so much to learn, right? So that's one of the things that you can do in order to regain the power that you have for yourself over people and words. Any questions? You're muted, Kendra.
I just said I don't see any right now.
Okay.
Julie did make a good point earlier that I forgot, or that I didn't share, and was talking about how change, like we're dealing with so much change right now, but it's something that, it happens all the time, loss of a job or a family or friend, selling house, divorce. There's a lot of things that go on that have a high level of stress. And right now it's just all of us going through that a lot.
Yes, we are going through that a lot, and having the ability to control what we think and how we feel helps us deal with stress, the daily tiny setbacks, the small little explosions that we are facing. The thing about being resilient is that we are not reacting to everything that happens. We are proactive. We are conscious about our thoughts, and we know when we need to take a minute and take a breath and separate ourselves from a situation. Resilience talks about gratitude so that we have that positive gratitude. So let me actually back up a little bit. Gratitude is scientifically proven to transform the way we think in the filter through which we see the world. And it does this because when we force our brain to scan the previous 24 or 48 hours for only good things that have happened, then we are more likely to see the only good things, not only to see good things coming at us in the future. We are more likely to see ways around, over, or through an obstacle than we are to, than if we weren't doing it. That's our negative bias. And gratitude counteracts the negative bias. We're not stopped by the obstacles. We are innovating because of the obstacles. And that's what we are all currently in. We are all facing an obstacle right now that we don't know how to deal with because we've never dealt with it before. So resiliency is the ability to become strong, healthy, or successful again after something bad happens. We are all in a state that something bad is happening on some level. We're either stuck at home, we can't work, we've lost our jobs. Whatever the case may be, we are all experiencing something right now collectively. And in order to recover quickly or recover the things that we have control over, our thoughts, emotions, and behavior will help us to see the future and what we can do about it. So not that we can't predict, we're not psychic, we can't see those things. But what we can do is focus on something, especially if we're business owners. What is it that we can do to take a step forward? What is it that we can focus on? What's our goal? What do we want our business to look like at the end of this year with the changes that we know we have had to make? For example, virtual meetings. This has been an interesting time in that we are all trying to figure out how to innovate. And if we can breathe and we can see the opportunities instead of the obstacles, and if we can be proactive instead of reactive, then we will recover quickly. We will recover more quickly than other people that are not capable of doing those things. Anything else you guys want to ask? Because this is the second to last slide.
I don't have any questions coming in right now.
Okay. Well, then the last slide is really just thank you. Thank you for attending the SCORE workshop. And thank you for participating in the poll everywhere. Kendra, I'll send that over to you. And if you guys have any questions at some point later this week, or you have specific questions about your business, feel free to reach out to me. My email is rina@rinajensen.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much for doing this. We've kind of had to scramble as online workshops were not SCORE's forte, but they are now, and we are really enjoying them. And I think this was really, really timely. I definitely think this emotional side of business is really important, and it's something that it's important that we address. So I really appreciate you being a part of this, Rina. And thank you to everybody for coming today. I will send you all the, what do you call it? The replay of this once we get it done. It usually takes me a full day to get it turned around, but we'll have that link shared. So if it's something you want to watch again, or if it's something you would like to share with somebody that could use it, we would absolutely encourage and love that. And Judy said, thank you, keep the faith. This COVID-19 too will pass. Stay positive and look at the good. And I'll share one more thing as far as that's concerned. So something that I've been doing, and I've had my kids do as well, is to write a few sentences every day about what's going on. I really thought about, the Diary of Anne Frank, which might be an extreme example, but it was simply something that, somebody's experience shared, and it has changed everyone's perception on, that time. And I think this will be something we will all look back on and have, it will be something we will wish we had our thoughts gathered together for. I know it was something I wish I would have done during the flood. So I would like to encourage everyone, if you're not writing a few words every day, maybe a couple, paragraph or two, if nothing else, just about what's going on. My kids are writing about the things that they've got to do and the things that they haven't been able to do. We've we've loosened the reins and tightened them in different ways, and we're all kind of pivoting together. So it might be something interesting to keep track of and to see how you respond after. Yeah,
that's a great idea.
Yeah, it's been interesting. I've already looked back and I'm like, wow, and as Rina and I were talking right before this, week 1 looked one way, week 2 looked another way, and some people moved from week 1 into week 2, and now looking into week 3, and their spirits have gone up and some have gone down, and everybody's experiencing it different. And something I learned from Rina is to learn how to feel what you're feeling, and deal with that first, and then you can go on to changing it. So thanks again so much. Leanne says she's been doing it too. Complete quarantine for 8 days for her. So thank you for doing that. All right, guys, we'll let you go, and I will hit the stop on the record. And if you